Alright, I'm back with another Destiny video. The last video we're going to make in the pre-Final Shape era, as by the time you're watching this, we're probably in the midst of the 25-hour downtime, where you can preload the game if you have, 300 free gigabytes on your computer, or just, sit around anxiously waiting. And I am trying to masterwork all my Diablo armor. That's what I'm busy working on ahead of the Final Shape. A lot of talk is kind of going around, given that this is the end of a 10-year Light and Darkness saga, about like what kind of Destiny means to you. And it is a 10-year saga because that's when Destiny 1 existed, and Bungie can say that the Light and Darkness saga started at Shadowkeep, so they can kind of justify deleting older content. That's wrong. Obviously, it started at the very beginning here with the Traveler, with, whatever the hell Destiny was at the very beginning there. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey with Destiny, which, as you might imagine, is different than a lot of people's, given my line of work and, a Destiny-focused writing career and a Destiny-focused YouTube channel and all of this stuff. So we'll kind of start at the beginning here. Obviously, when Destiny was announced, everyone was pretty excited. Bungie was splitting from Microsoft and entering into this partnership with Activision, which at the time seemed like an okay idea. And they were leaving Halo behind. Microsoft was keeping Halo and passing it off to 343. Everyone was a little sad because most people really enjoy Bungie's Halo games. But, obviously we were going to be excited for whatever Bungie did next. And no one really understood what they were doing. We knew, everyone kind of assumed it was like Halo adjacent, like, okay, you'd have a campaign with some space things, you would have some multiplayer PvP stuff, but the more information came out, the more confusing it kind of was. And then we got into all this talk about how Destiny 2, or sorry, I'm automatically saying Destiny 2 because it's been so long. Destiny as a franchise was supposed to be this 10-year franchise that Activision was throwing at least $500 million at. And it seemed so ridiculous at the time for a brand new IP to be able to do something like this. Like, totally untested, totally unproven. Even if it was Bungie, even if it's a studio everyone really liked, that it still felt sort of impossible and like a bit egotistical to make those kind of high profile promises. I think some of that was on Activision, because I think Activision did have a vision of this being Activision's thing for a very long time. And I remember kind of in the early days, there was also talk from Bungie about, we want this to be, a video game equivalent of Star Wars or something. And it's like, okay, come on. Let's calm down a little bit. And yet, for me, and how many of you, has this had more of an impact on your life than Star Wars or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or whatever other big franchise you have? I would say it is the most influential piece of media on my life, in the sense of the time I've devoted to it, how integrated it's been into my life for a full decade, under a third of my life, but a very significant part of it. And, half the time I've been playing, games as much as I've had, at least. And it's not like it's better than Star Wars or something. It's just such a fascinating kind of experience that blends, storytelling, gameplay, community, PvE, PvP, like things we had not seen before in the genre. And overall this time, I think we have, those of us who've stuck with it since the beginning, it has been part of a really significant aspect of our lives in terms of our media consumption, like the people we've met through the game, and in my case, the career it's given me. So when Destiny launched, it was very strange. No one really understood what it was. It seemed like it was sort of trying to be Borderlands with, shooting and gun rarity and classes and things, which itself was, an offshoot of Diablo, those type of games, ARPGs. But this had sort of the Bungie je ne sais quoi, where the shooting felt really good. And like, even if the story was crazy and we didn't really have any idea what we were doing or what the plot was per se, and like the structure of the game was pretty weird, the shooting felt really good. And that was kind of the baseline where everything else followed. You may recall that Destiny reviewed bad at launch. It got a lot of 6 out of 10s. I don't remember what the final score is for it. I think it was like a 70 or something. And, things got a little more condensed in the last 10 years where like a 70 for a major AAA game is pretty not great, especially a game, with that much investment sunk into it. And a 6, as I've said, can close down a studio. That may not be fair, but that is how things work in the current climate, because chances are if your game is reviewing at a 6 out of 10, it's not really going to catch on. And few games really get, chances after that. Some do, and we've seen some of those over the years, but Destiny was one that really, has been able to evolve over time in just ways that no one ever saw coming, to the point where it became its own genre that so many other games tried to emulate because it did become that successful. I waited a couple of weeks to do my review for it, and I gave it, I think I gave it an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10, and that was after Vault of Glass. It was after sort of what we, when we better understood the game, as opposed to a lot of people giving it review. I don't think there were advanced copies because of the servers, but like a couple of people reviewing it in a couple of days, a week, like, 'cause you get through the campaign really quickly. And Bungie, they've said that they gave me credit, when I've talked to them, that for waiting a little bit to not be one of those 6 out of 10s. But obviously the game is a longer course of lifespan past that. And I think we all know at this point that the Taken King came along, and it was the big sort of sea change moment for the game. Now we refer to games needing a Taken King moment or things like that, to the point where that is what, really accelerated Destiny into the stratosphere after kind of struggling to find its footing. And for many people, some people believe that was like the peak of Destiny, and like it may have been the peak of like some amount of at least the community vibes, like the raid races and the, how popular it was and surging, and it was like a really cool thing. It wasn't like, oh, you're still playing Destiny. It was like a year old, and everyone's like, oh wow, this Destiny game is really taking off. And what I discovered as I played over the course of that year, I wasn't like addicted to it per se. There wasn't anything that was like, oh my god, I got to grind this a million hours a night. But I never ran out of stuff to talk about. Like there were so many dimensions to the game, and so many like kind of, strange issues or weird controversies or like things people discovered, that, I was writing multiple Destiny articles a week, and that eventually became essentially a Destiny article a day. And I don't know how many articles I've written over the years, but I've probably written at least, if I'm writing one a day, and I've been doing this 14 years now, and Destiny's 10 years old, you do the math. It's thousands of articles at this point, and obviously I have hundreds of YouTube videos now too. And there's just endless amounts to talk about, because it's not the only game like that. Certainly there are games that are big enough and long enough to have, that level of coverage. I don't think there's that many. Like what comes to mind when we say, games that have this 10-year lifespan, like World of Warcraft? I don't know. I can't name that many, honestly. And for me personally, what this did was I became sort of the Destiny guy, not like the number one content creator, but in the journalism writing space, I sort of carved out this area for myself that both sort of conceptually like didn't really exist. Like it was a game that had this many updates, that was sort of this ongoing process. I became to realize you sort of needed like an on the ground reporter for a game like that, where people could dip in and out and kind of see what's going on. And like this still happens to this day. There are definitely other people like me now who have sort of made Destiny their full-time beat, like not YouTubers, but like writers. Like there are, a couple of us like this, but at the time it really let me carve out a niche, because when you were, looking up information about Destiny back before Google sucked ass, you would Google something and probably my article would come up, maybe some videos or whatever, but no one else was covering it like past launch or like when a DLC launched or something. But I was writing about it every week, eventually every day. And for my business, like what we really look for, in my kind of writing is repeat visitors, which is, we really value readers that read your stuff and then keep coming back. And I was, my bosses really wanted us to engage with repeat visitors. And back then to this day, I have one of the most, engaged repeat visitor audiences because of this. Like, for instance, if you're just writing about, random stuff that's doing well on Google, which I also do, admittedly, that's, someone who's going to read your site and bounce off. But if you have a community of people who are coming to your stuff and reading it every day, that is very valuable. And of course, this has gotten me a lot of hate, a lot of pushback over the years because, 50-60% of the time, I'm probably complaining about something. And I know that is probably very annoying to many people. It's annoying to some fans, some journalists. It's been annoying to Bungie, certainly. In the past, I've known that. But another thing is like, I feel like I've had a solid relationship with many people at Bungie all this time because eventually it wasn't just me, like, oh, it's the guy who complains about Destiny. Like, they recognize that I'm very passionate about the game, and like, I wouldn't have written 3,000 articles about Destiny or 2,000, whatever it is, if I was not incredibly engaged with, incredibly passionate about the game and playing it. Like, I am not the most, I don't have all the raid belts and titles and, everything that like the hardest core players and hardest core, content creators do. Like, I'm more from a, mid casual perspective. I can't say I'm casual with, 3,500 hours into the game and covering it every single day, but like, I'm not grinding as hard as everyone else is, but I want to engage enough to be able to cover the game in a way where people continually are like, yeah, he's playing, he's at least playing the game, he knows what's going on. And I like it. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like it, if I wasn't, fascinated with the long-term trajectory of the game and how we've gotten to this point where it's been this 10-year saga of like all these ups and downs, and like even the past year has been like a really fraught time because of Lightfall and the issues that followed, Bungie layoffs. Like, where do things go from here? But now we've kind of arrived at this point where people have been very hyped. For the last 2 months, people are extremely hyped for the final shape. I think it's going to break player count records, at least on platforms we can track like Steam. And then we know more stuff is coming, episodes start, but this is going to be a significant moment for the game, maybe the most significant moment for the game that we've seen. And the fact that people are this hype, the fact that like Destiny is a top 10, top 5 game in Steam right now after 10 years, and it's not just like Counter-Strike, like it's this, mostly PvE based ongoing live game, that is extremely impressive. And like how many would-be Destiny competitors have come and gone? Some were more successful than others. I'd consider the Division games pretty successful. They're even still going with some new content now. There's always sort of been this adjacent through line with Warframe. Warframe's, it's still a really solid game, even if it's not. Sometimes it does actually go higher than Destiny, but like it does not as high profile as Destiny. But we have the famous failures of things like Anthem and Marvel's Avengers and now Suicide Squad, to the point where we're seeing a lot of people backing off of this concept because it is so expensive to maintain this level of content production. To PvP is one thing where it's like, okay, we need a battle pass, maybe we need a new battle royale map, we need some new multiplayer maps, and like, not that those people don't work hard, but it's another level to deliver the amount of PvE content, especially that Bungie gives us on a seasonal basis. And like, you can go back in time, and it used to be like it was a lot less. Like, we had seasons that were based around an entire public event, season of the whatever the first Rasputin season was. Like, it was just a public event. And where we've ascended to now is pretty nuts, both in terms of the amount of content we get, but also storytelling. Like, we can go back to Menagerie. Menagerie was the best activity ever in Season of Opulence. Storytelling in those seasons was like a lore book and a half, or like 12 lines of dialogue in a raid. Like, storytelling, you may not agree with every twist and turn or whatever, but it has really evolved at the same time. And it's just been such a compelling journey for me. And like, I owe a ton to this game. I don't know if I would be here without it. Like, yes, I cover many, many things. Yes, 80% of my content, 85, whatever, is about other stuff. But I don't know if I would have had this kind of future, this kind of platform in the industry without Destiny. I don't think I would. I think more than half easily of my Twitter followers are Destiny-based people. I think, I've gotten millions of repeat visitors over the years from Destiny content. Like, this has not just paid my bills. Like, this has, bought my house. This is, provided for my family. Like, allowed my wife to bounce all around the country, like for medical training, and allow me to be as flexible as I can, because I can play Destiny and cover Destiny from anywhere, and it's allowed me to be very flexible. And now it is allowing me to provide for my son, who I do hope to play Destiny with someday. as how old can kids play Destiny at? I don't know. Let's say like 5. It'll be around in 5 years, right? Or no, he's 2 now. 3 years. So it's just been a really amazing time. I think it's been a fantastic decade of Destiny, and I have never been engaged with another piece of media like this ever. Like, individually, like, sure, I've played some amazing 15-20 hour story games that, The Last of Us is better story than 10 years of Destiny, sure. But like, in terms of my overall commitment to a game and engagement with it, I put this in a separate category of something like Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, that I got like just addicted to it. Like, I was just addicted to, like, as I'm currently grinding like crazy Diablo 4. I enjoyed those games, but it's like, it was a compulsion that I don't really feel the same way of Destiny. Like, yes, I'll spend a long time grinding out god rolls or whatever, but it's not the same thing. Like, I can pick it up, I can put it down, I'm not engaging with it if I'm not enjoying it to some extent. And I enjoy kind of examining its problems and talking about solutions. And a lot of those solutions end up being implemented. Not that I'm taking credit for it, because a lot of things I say are usually kind of widespread problems or things that other people in the community are saying, or things that I've just stolen from Reddit. I don't steal things from Reddit. Reddit is the most popular community forum for the game. Obviously, I'm going to read the Reddit. But I always try to bring my own take to everything I do. I try to inject my opinion in everything, but because I think that is often more interesting to read than just flat news articles. And I also recognize that I am not, the leader in this field of like every possible thing you can cover in Destiny. I think all the YouTubers are doing a much better job of guides and like weapon, things you should get, and what should you do for this encounter. Like, here's a full Rick Kakis raid walkthrough 30 minutes after it ends. Like, I don't know how anyone does that stuff. And those guys, even if they're not writing 5 articles a day or whatever like me, they work incredibly hard, and they get a lot of shit too. Like, all of us who are these public facing figures with platforms will get shit, and we just sort of have to understand that and acknowledge it. But I don't think we can overlook the amount of support we've had, and I really want to thank all of you, like, for reading my writing, for watching me after all these years, because it's like, I can't just credit Destiny. I have to credit all the people that have supported this content and have been interested in this content. And like, even if you're hate reading it and want to debate me, that's still valuable to some extent. Like, I'm not trying to provoke you, but I am fine with having debates about this or that issue with the game. And I recognize people are a lot more likely to get mad at you about things and tell you that than say positive things. But I've had many people say so many positive things over the years that have really encouraged me. And even Bungie itself, like, not Bungie leadership these days, but like individual employees of Bungie have really, in the last few years especially, have really reached out to me, and I've gotten to form some relationships with them, and it feels a lot less maybe adversarial than it was at the start, where I was complaining and everyone was like annoyed by that. But I think I've reached a point where it feels good to be able to offer what I hope is constructive feedback. And I think maybe I've toned things down a little bit over the years to be like less of an asshole, hopefully. But these are the lessons you kind of learn along the way. And I'll end this by saying, like, I'll be covering Destiny indefinitely. At least as long as I have this job. Like, I'm not gonna, as long as Destiny exists and as long as I'm doing this kind of writing for a living, I will continue writing it. I can't guarantee that with Marathon, because I'm not really a PvP extraction guy, but Destiny itself, I believe it's going to survive. I do. I know Bungie has some serious issues, and whatever's going on with Sony is a little tricky, but I believe that this is a franchise that people are going to want to continue to invest in for the foreseeable future. It may change. It may change what that looks like. Maybe it gets less support over time. Like, that seems not impossible for a game that's heading into its second decade of life. But kind of no matter what, I will be there, and hopefully you'll be there too with me, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you as ever for watching, and I will see you tomorrow as the final shape content rush begins, and I have to balance actually playing it with writing and making videos and all that stuff, which is a fun time, but sort of chaotic and exhausting, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.